"Please, Mr. Tom, please," he whispered, his voice shaking. A 6-year-old Danny was on the ground begging and clutching his red toy truck. "I won't tell anyone. I promise." Tom Henderson loomed over him, his expression cold. "It's not about you, Danny," he said softly. "It's just something I have to do." Danny's tear-streaked face turned toward the house in the distance. "I just want to go home," he begged, but the woods stayed silent. Moments later, even Danny's cries were gone. In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Manchester, the Carter family suffered a devastating loss. Their only son, 6-year-old Danny, went missing one summer evening. Despite desperate searches, his body was found 2 days later in a shallow grave in the woods behind their house. The autopsy revealed that Danny had been suffocated, but there were no witnesses, and the case went cold. The grief tore the Carter family apart. Emma Carter, Danny's mother, blamed herself for letting him play outside alone that day. Mark Carter, his father, became withdrawn, consumed by guilt and anger. After the funeral, the Carters noticed something unsettling. Tom Henderson, their next-door neighbor, abruptly sold his house and moved away. Tom had always been a calm and odd man, and was respected in the neighborhood. 3 years later, Emma and Mark decided to rebuild their lives and try for another child. Emma gave birth to a boy they named Samuel. From the moment Samuel was born, Emma felt an unexplainable connection to him. He had the same curly blonde hair and piercing blue eyes as Danny. Sometimes, when she held him, she felt as if Danny was somehow still with her. As Samuel grew, he displayed remarkable similarities to Danny. He liked the same toys, hummed the same songs, and even asked for Danny's favorite snacks, things Emma and Mark had never mentioned to him. At first, they dismissed it as coincidence. But by the time Samuel turned 3, the coincidences became impossible to ignore. One day, while playing in the backyard, Samuel stopped abruptly and stared at the woods behind the house. He turned to Emma and said, "This is where he buried me." Emma froze. "What did you say, Sam?" Samuel looked up innocently. "The bad man. He put me in the ground over there." Emma's heart raced. She called Mark outside, and Samuel repeated the same thing. Mark, skeptical but shaken, said, "Sam, who told you this?" Samuel frowned, as if trying to remember. Then he said something that made Emma's knees buckle. It was Mr. Tom. Mark's face turned pale. "Tom Henderson?" Samuel nodded. "He's not as you all think." Over the next few weeks, Samuel began saying more things that left Emma and Mark in disbelief. One night, while Emma was tucking him into bed, Samuel whispered, "He gave me a red truck before he hurt me." Emma gasped. Danny had gone missing while playing with a small red toy truck, which was never found. She called Mark into the room, and Samuel continued, "He said I could have more toys if I didn't tell anyone." Then he got mad. "How did he hurt you, Sam?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. Samuel touched his neck and said, "He held me like this, and I couldn't breathe." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "Did he say anything?" Samuel nodded. "He said no one would believe me because he's a grown-up." The Carters contacted the police with Samuel's revelations, but they were initially dismissed. "It's impossible for a child this young to know these details unless someone told him," the investigator said. Emma insisted, "We haven't told him anything." "And how would he know about the red truck?" The detective, Sarah Nolan, decided to reopen the case. She was intrigued by the specificity of Samuel's claims and the coincidence of Tom Henderson moving away right after Danny's murder. Sarah dug into Tom's past and discovered he had a history of suspicious behavior. He had been questioned in 2 other missing child cases but was never charged. Sarah also learned that Tom had been seen talking to Danny on the day he disappeared. Though no one had thought much of it at the time, Samuel's revelations continued, becoming more detailed as he grew older. One evening, while the family was having dinner, he said, "There's a box in Mr. Tom's shed." "What box, Sam?" Mark asked. "The one with my truck in it. And other stuff he took." Emma and Mark were stunned. They immediately called Detective Nolan. Armed with this new information, Sarah obtained a search warrant for Tom Henderson's old property, now owned by another family. The new owners allowed the police to search the shed, where they found a locked metal box. Inside were several items: Danny's red toy truck, a bracelet Danny had been wearing the day he disappeared, Polaroid photos of other children. The evidence was damning. Detective Nolan tracked Tom Henderson to a small town in Scotland, where he had been living under a different name, when the police arrested Tom. He initially denied everything. But when presented with the box and the items inside, his demeanor changed. Under intense questioning, he confessed to killing Danny and admitted to targeting other children. The Carters were informed of the arrest, and while it brought a sense of justice, it also reopened old wounds. Emma couldn't stop crying when she saw Danny's red truck, now faded but still intact. After Tom was convicted, Samuel stopped talking about Danny's murder. It was as if he had fulfilled his purpose. One night, while Emma was tucking him into bed, he looked up at her and said, "Mom, I don't have to talk about it anymore. Dan is okay now." Emma hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Sam, are you Danny?" Samuel smiled softly. "I was, but now I'm Samuel. And I'm happy." The Carters decided to move away from the neighborhood, wanting to leave behind the painful memories. But they kept Danny's photos and belongings as reminders of the son they had lost, and the miracle of Samuel's arrival. Emma and Mark dedicated their lives to raising awareness about child safety and supporting families of victims. Samuel grew up knowing the role he had played in bringing justice for Danny, but he never mentioned his past life again. The Carters found peace, knowing that love had transcended death to reunite their family and bring justice to their son.
Please subscribe, like, comment and share this video. It means a lot to us. Thank you.